Let's talk about everyone's favorite subject. What can go right? What can go wrong? Variance. Best and worst case scenarios. Michael, you're always the best case.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I'm putting you on the train to Squaresville. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. We're here. And we are here to talk about, for thanking you for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free. We're available on all platforms. So, we're talking variance. What do I mean by that? I'm not talking about variance necessarily here in terms of, well, this guy could get hurt. I think we know about that. I'm not even talking about, what about variance in role? What if this guy plays 30 minutes versus 20 minutes? I'm not even talking about variance of, well, this guy might play and then by the end of the season he might get traded or the team might tank or he might get shut down or whatever. I'm not even looking at that stuff. They are, and this is where the difficulty in fantasy basketball comes in, because they're all real things. They're all things that can happen and can impact. You can talk about the variance of injuries. You can talk about the variance of role. You can talk about the variance of minutes, higher at the beginning, lower at the end, vice versa. All that sort of stuff. All of those things factor in and they multiply on top of each other. What I am looking at here is literally just statistical, that's the word, statistical projection variance. By looking at historical numbers and the way that statistics, individual categories, have variance rates year on year. So we know that things don't stay the same. Look at the best player in fantasy basketball, Nikola Jokic. He was awesome last season. And did it while shooting 42% from three, averaging 1.8 steals, and averaging a triple-double. Which, of course, he has literally never done before. He was the best player in fantasy, and he did all these things he's never done before with big variance changes. Now, you could argue that they stay the same. You could argue they get better. I think they're wrong arguments, but you can do that. But they could also, the 42% might become 36% from three. And it impacts lots of different things. So, the best players are not even immune to year-to-year changes. So I go through and look at all of these numbers. We did this show last year as well. And we are going to have some of this stuff on Basketball Monster this season with more variance stuff that's going to take into consideration minutes and role variance as well for best and worst case scenarios. It's not released yet, but it is coming. This is literally just looking at individual category projection variance. What are the most variable, the least variable categories, and how that impacts it. And this is applicable to both category leagues and points leagues. I've got a formula that I work out in the back to see where the most and best variance or the highest risk players are. And I'm going to be using Yahoo's default current ranks as of, well, it's the 12th of September here. It's 11th of September over in the United States as I am recording this. So looking at that current Yahoo rank and telling you who the player is in each 12-man grouping, so round, who projects to me to have the best or the narrowest best and worst case window, or the player with the largest range of outcomes in those situations. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about the top 12 ranked players on Yahoo and how I project them to, or who's got the best and worst case outcomes. I already realized as I put this graphic up, there's a mistake on that, which annoys me, because Victor Wembanyama is to me the best or the lowest variance player in round one, even though his category, blocks, is a relatively high variance category. Now, I've said on that graphic that his best case scenario is being the number one player and his worst case scenario is being the number one player. Not true. His best case scenario, according to the way that I project it, again, not based on minutes, not based on role, not based on any of that stuff, just individual category contributions in points and category leagues. His best case is first or third. Or best case is first, worst situation is third to me. He's currently ranked 3 on Yahoo, but we all know Wemby's going at 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5, but probably not. But he does have a pretty tight window. Jokic is not far behind. These are not surprising results. And the next guy there in that grouping is Luka in terms of the most stable guys with the narrowest ranges of outcomes in that first round. Both Jokic and Wemby have that best case 1, worst case 3 type setup. It's very close overall to see the difference there. And in terms of fantasy points, their differences between best and worst case is probably 9 fantasy points per game. All right, which is a big number, obviously, but they project as the best. The guy that's currently ranked in the first round at the moment, who has the worst range of outcomes, is Domantas Sabonis. Now, it is insane to me that Domantas Sabonis would be ranked 9th. It is absolutely crazy. Even in points leagues, that is crazy. In category leagues, it is league-losing type of stuff. It is a ridiculous rank. But even considering that, I've got a pretty wide range of outcomes of where Sabonis could be. I think probably best case for him, and that the best and worst case numbers are more category ranks, but it's not that different. Best is 18th for him, and worst case I've got for Sabonis is 48th. And I know you'll say, well, how could that be possible? Just have a look at what he did after De'Aaron Fox was traded and Zach LaVine came across. Just have a look. It's not, he missed games as well. He missed 12 of them, a hamstring issue. He doesn't score 20 points a game. He's got bad free throws. He's got bad steals. He's got terrible blocks. And part of the reason he was even able to do what he did last season, Sabonis, is he shot 42% from 3. Which I'm not sure that's going to hold. So, to me, that is a horrid pick in round 1. In a category league, I definitely wouldn't do it in the top 20. I think I had him at 24-25 when I did my top 25 players today. I'm not even sure I'd go that high, honestly. All this stuff is always fluid. My mind is adjusting and changing. But to me, Sabonis is in that first 12 ranked players on Yahoo. Like, it's the worst. It's a bad pick just in general. Plus, the range of outcomes is the worst out of anyone in that 12-man grouping. If we go to the next group, the round 2 grouping, I think Jim Harden, for me, has the tightest range of outcomes here. I still don't think he should be a second-round player. I think he should be a first-round player. He's currently ranked 14th, Harden. I think best case, he can finish 4th. I would say he doesn't. I don't think there's any way that he actually does. Well, not anyway, because, again, we've got statistical probabilities. But I think best case, he could be the 4th best player for category leagues. Don't think he will, but he could. Worst case, 22nd is where I've got him. That's not a bad range. Especially when you look at someone else who's in that round 2 range, Pascal Siakam, who, for a start, at pick 24, it's just too high. I think best case for him, I've got him at 34. Like, obviously, each of these numbers is a number. Great insight, Josh. It's a number, right? But whatever. It's not, like, if Siakam finishes 33rd, you'll be, oh my God, you said 34th, we finished 33rd. Who cares? It's more like a general vibe range. If you're 32nd or you're 36th or 37th, whatever. It's not that big of a deal. But that is I could see a scenario, again, not likely, but if a lot of things go badly for Siakam, he might not be a top 100 player. Given where variance sits in the individual categories, that is how it could project. And again, with best and worst case scenarios, I am not looking at those as likely outcomes outside of Wembanyama at 1. I think that's very possible. But when we get into these other rounds here, I don't think it's likely. I don't think it's probable even. But it is possible. So not only do I just don't like Siakam in round 2, I think that there is such a wide range of outcomes for him that it's a very scary proposition. In round 3, it's pretty silly that Kevin Durant, I think, is in round 3, although there could be significant drop-offs at any point given his age. That is true. He's currently ranked 31st. I think best case, KD can be the 7th best player. I think worst case, per game, he's probably 24th, which again gives you pretty good value. Maybe he's worse than that. But I do think that he looks like a really, like if KD is there in round 3, category leagues, more points leagues, he's not quite as good, obviously. I think that he's got some pretty tight ranges. Desmond Bane, on the other hand, is also projected as a 3rd-round guy, currently ranked 36th on Yahoo. I wouldn't take him there in a million years. I think the best outcome for him, again, this is not including a situation where Banchero and Wagner miss 60 games each, because obviously, if that happens, then Bane is going to be way better. But I don't think you can go into any draft to make any selections, let alone in round 3, going, wow, if 2 other guys on the team miss 100 plus games, then he's going to make this number up, because that, again, is an insane way of drafting. I've got him at best case 44th, but worst case 120th. I actually think that Bane is a huge candidate to be overdrafted this season. Do I think that he's going to be 120th? Absolutely not. Not in a million years do I think that. But there is a possibility, and it's all about this part here, is about illustrating the ranges of outcomes based on the way that the player's stats are built up, plus the baseline projections that I have. I'm going to come back and talk all the way through to round 10, the top 120 ranked players on Yahoo. Before we do that though, today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks or properties or investments. If you don't have that full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That is why there is Monarch Money, the all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. You can pull off organizing, if you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. It does the heavy lifting, linking all of your accounts in minutes. You can see the clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That is 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONNBA. Okay, so you know where we're at here. We're talking about best and worst case scenarios of these players. Let's go into the guys projected round 4 on Yahoo. So we're talking about Zion Williamson, who's ranked 39th. Now, I am big on Zion's per game value this season. Again, go back to the first 3 minutes of the show where I talked about we're not talking variance based on games played here. We're not talking about variance based on tanking. I'm talking about just strictly what are the numbers the guy puts up. I think that Zion has a legitimate shot to be a top 10 player per game. There is a probability or a possibility that he can do that. I think the worst case for Zion is 42nd per game. Again, catering to most people playing head-to-head category leagues. In points leagues, we already know Zion's got a huge ceiling, right? This does not suggest that you take Zion in round 1 or round 2. It's just saying that there comes a point where the injuries, and rightfully they're a problem, but the actual per game output numbers have a much tighter range than a lot of other players in this round. For example, Josh Hart is currently ranked 45th in this 4th round territory on Yahoo. And not only is it a horrific move to pick him there just in general, but the range of outcomes to me is just way too big. I've got him best case 78th, worst case 150th. Not good. Factor in, he's not worth a 4th round pick anyway. Plus you got a wide range of outcomes. You shouldn't be doing this. You shouldn't be touching him. At all. Not at all. Players who are low volume scorers, that's one of the takeaways you find from this, lower volume scorers tend to have more variance. Why is that? Well, what it does mean is that your both percentages, if you're talking category leagues, have lower denominators. Lower field goal attempts, lower free throw attempts, meaning that each time you make or miss a field goal or free throw, it has a larger impact on the overall percentage. Say basic quick maths, 2 plus 2, right? If you look at someone who takes 10 field goals a game or someone who takes 20 field goals a game. Yep, the person taking, and they both shoot 50%. 5 of 10, 10 of 20. 50%. A 10 field goal attempt player, if he makes one more shot, he becomes a 60% shooter. 6 of 10. If the 10 of 20 player makes one more shot, he becomes a 55% shooter. See the impact? If a 10 of 20 shooter misses one shot, he becomes a 45% shooter, 9 of 20. If a 5 of 10 shooter misses one of those shots, becomes a 4 of 10 shooter, 40%. So each shot that you miss or make from a 10 field goal attempt player per game gives you a 10 percentage point swing. If you're 20 field goals a game, it's a 5 percentage point swing. So the lower volume scorers, which of course is influenced by lower field goals and lower free throws, your percentages have a much wider range of outcomes because you're dealing with a lower denominator in both those categories. Therefore, your points category also can be a little bit all over the place. And then you're relying more upon lower volume, higher variance categories like steals and blocks too. And that's where a lot of those problems come in. Hope that makes sense. I think it does. Didn't expect to get into that lesson there, but yeah, that's where we went. What about round 5? Who are the guys in round 5 with some, I guess, levels of stability in their production? I know people, which again, I am very surprised at this, because I'll tell you straight up, what Denny Avdija did second half of last season, not a real outcome. Against a bunch of teams not trying with weird lineups. But this team is also very strange this season. Ayton's gone and Simons is gone. And Holiday's there, but he's not the same usage player. So there is more for Avdija to do. But like I drafted Avdija at pick 45 or whatever in the draft yesterday. People go, it's ridiculous. It's way too high. Why would you take him there? Is it? I don't know. I don't think it is. So I thought, and same goes with Josh Giddey, I thought that people would be like taking Denny Avdija in round 3 this season, taking him in the 30s, and I'd be having me like, hey, settle down. But no, apparently not. I've got Denny's, he's currently ranked 54th. I've got Denny's best case outcome as 21st. Worst at 76. Last season, he was sort of bang in the middle, 73rd ranked player. But that's playing only 30 minutes a night with only 23 usage. He should play 33 with 25 usage, probably with more assists as well. He averaged 17, 7, and 4. Do I think that he's a future star? Under no circumstance. Do I think he's an all-star? No way. Never. But who cares? Because I'm talking about fantasy projections for this current season. And I think that Denny Avdija in round 5 not only has value to go just be above that, but the range of outcomes for him is pretty narrow. Whereas Jarrett Allen, for example, I don't like in this round, where he's ranked 57th. I think he's got, honestly, I think there's a scenario where Jarrett Allen is not rosterable for parts of this season. Because realistically, we saw that last season. There were parts of last season where it's like, what am I doing here with this guy? I've got a range of best case 87th, worst case 158th. I think he's helped by the absence of Strus and Garland earlier in the season, Jarrett Allen, but the range of outcomes is bad. The overall value is bad in round 5 for Jarrett, and I think you should be considering that if you're thinking of reaching for him. Round 6, I like Julius Randle's range of outcomes here. I think Randle's best case is 44th and worst case is 91st, give or take. He's currently ranked 67th. I think it makes complete sense here. That team is relatively stable as well. Yes, they've lost Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and we don't know what Mike Conley is doing or how they're going to use him. But it's Randle, it's Gobert, it's Edwards, it's McDaniels. These guys are all pretty similar. And Randle's got a lot of stability in his numbers. At 70th ranked player, which again is an insane spot to consider Rowan Barrett in any sort of category league. You do not draft RJ Barrett here. For points leagues, I sort of get it. But also, remember, this isn't even taken into consideration the variance associated in minutes or role, because maybe he's a guy that gets traded or benched. But Barrett, I've got for categories like best case 130th and worst case outside the top 200, because again, that's happened many times. So taking him at 70 is it as bad as wasting a 4th rounder on Josh Hart or a 1st on Sabonis? It's up there. It's a pretty bad pick at that point in the draft, and I would not be wanting to do that. Not in a million years would I want to do that. Let's take a look at some round 7 best and worst case variance type situations. And again, I don't like Brandon Ingram. There is injury concerns with Brandon Ingram, but the way that his skill set is built out, there's a level of reliability. He's ranked 77th. I think that best case, I don't think he can be a top 50 player, but 64th, worst case, 125th, which is not great, obviously, but as you get to this part of drafts, the worst case scenario of players is guys that you're just going to be dropping immediately. And I don't think that Ingram is going to be that guy. I am worried about how everything works in Toronto. I'm worried about the interactions between the players and the needing of the ball in their hands, and then obviously Ingram's injury is a part of that too. But in terms of his skill set and production, I think he's a little bit more compact than others. And Devin Vassell, this is again where I'm not providing anything here biased-wise. I'm doing it based on the numbers and the projections, because out of these two players, if you asked anybody who's followed me for any period of time, Josh, is Josh more of a... Josh loves Ingram and hates Devin Vassell, they'd go, I'm so sorry, did somebody chop off your ears? because that has never been the case. I would praise Devin Vassell continually and shit on Brandon Ingram as basically a side hustle. But I think Devin Vassell's got a terrible range of outcomes here. Best case 86th. I think worst he's outside the top 200. Honestly, with some of the things that he does and my projected drop in usage and assist rate for him, I'm a little concerned. I'm a little concerned of what Vassell actually does this season. Now, again, I'm not saying that he's going to be 200. That's pretty unlikely. But just looking at the numbers when you just plug them in and go, oh, right, okay, that's a risky scenario. So if Vassell's ranked 84th, I'm not touching him there. At 100, all right, let's consider that more. But when we're talking about this round 7 area, I just wouldn't want anything to do with that. There's too much risk involved in just his profile versus throwing in how does everyone fit plus minutes plus injuries, adding extra complexity to it. We're going to look at the final 3 rounds in a sec. Today's episode, though, is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here. So FanDuel is making sure that you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Maybe they should talk to some of the kickers and see whether they can miss or actually make a bloody field goal. Anyway, right now, new customers can bet just $5. If your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Watching the games, you can put your knowledge to the test. You can use those same-game parlays. You can use individual lines and spreads and totals and futures, cross-sport, same-game parlays if you like, player props. It's all there. So when you are ready to play, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and get started. That is FanDuel.com to place your $5 bet and win the $300 in bonus bets. And don't forget to gamble responsibly. All right, we're talking variance. We're talking best and worst case scenario outcomes based on the individual stats and the way that a player's profile is built out for category and points league situations. We're up to round 8 now. And this one is, I think, a relatively obvious one. The only reason, I guess, that Mark Williams is ranked at 93 on Yahoo is people are very scared of his injuries. Because to me, his best case is a second-round player. I think his worst case statistically is, I got him inside the top 65. 93rd is taking the injury problem and making that the whole narrative. Which, okay, I do get that. I think the failed trade has really scared people, but it is worth noting that he was playing like 32 minutes a night, even after the trade, and the numbers were great. I have almost zero doubt. If I wanted to say I'm absolutely locking something in, I have zero doubt that Williams will destroy rank 93 on a per-game basis. Categories and points, cook it, it's done. I don't have any concern about that. Of course, then it comes down to injury, but if you're talking about, again, it would have to be very, very, very best case for him to be a second-round player. Very best case. But you might get a third-round guy in round 7. I know he's ranked round 8, but round 6, round 7, I'm okay with it. And the range of outcomes is pretty good. Whereas for Malik Monk, who's ranked actually higher than Mark Williams at 85, which again is a mind-blowingly bad positioning, I think, I don't see how that happens. He's not playing the minutes of last season. Remember, he got benched by Doug Christie down the stretch. Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, they signed Dennis Schroeder for God knows what reason. Devin Carter is there. Keon Ellis is there. Monk will not have the same role. I am very certain of that. So how would we be considering this? Plus, it could go real tits up for him. I think best case he's like 120th. Worst case is outside the top 200. It is not a good situation for Monk, and I'm 100% not burning a pick in that sort of area to get him. Round 9. There are concerns clearly with Asar Thompson. He's ranked 106th and his minutes were limited last season. Some of it through a minutes restriction. And you know what I'm going to say next. You can type it in the chat in the comments if you want. What am I going to say? Yeah, a fraudulent minutes restriction that JB Bickerstaff lied about. So he won't be able to lie about that minutes restriction again this season. But will Asar start? I guess so. Will he be limited in terms of how they play him because of the Durant situation and wanting to get more shooting next to Cade? It's possible. If he's a 31-minute-a-night guy, there is zero shot that he doesn't beat 106. Zero. I've got him best case at 27th and worst at 118 Asar. And there's some variance because of steals and blocks with him, obviously, and some of the percentages and lower usage. But at 106, we got so much value here. He played like 23 minutes a night last season, Asar Thompson. coming off a blood clot where he didn't play at the start of the season and was eased back in, and they went really cautious with him. He averaged 10, 5, and 2 with 1.7 steals. He shot 54 and 64 from the field and the line at, 19 usage? The range of outcomes for him is the best of everyone currently ranked in round 9. Plus, I just think the median outcome for him is better than anyone there. I think the range of outcomes for Jaden McDaniels is pretty bad. McDaniels is not someone I would want to take in this area. He's ranked at 102 ahead of Asar Thompson. Never in a million years would I do that. I think best case for him is just inside the top 100. Worst case is 200th, because honestly, we've seen that so many times. He had a really good stretch in the middle of the year when a bunch of players were out, and guess what happened at the end of the season when players returned? Same old. Shooting numbers, rebounds down, defensive stats down, usage down. Minutes even came down as well. I'm not sure that the minutes are going to come down as much because they're lacking Nickeil Alexander-Walker, but yeah, you taking him in round 9 gives you such a bad range of outcomes. Plus, not sure he's got really much chance of hitting that number just as a general rule anyway. And the last round we're going to touch on here is round 10, and I've got 2 second-year players as the best and worst case scenario options here. I think Zach Edey in round 10, and I'd feel way more confident if I knew he was missing 1 or 2 weeks only, but he's ranked 111th. I think he can, I've got best case for him 81st, worst 123rd. Really narrow margin. He could actually, again, play more minutes and be healthier than I expect and blow through that number easily. But that's not what the scope of this is. I'm just saying, pretty narrow range of outcomes. Pretty likely he's better than this number. I like it. Stephon Castle, I don't get it. He was bad all season. Let me rephrase. Bad most of the season. Second half of the season, or the last 2 months of the season, especially more in points leagues, numbers were better. They weren't good, but they were better. The usage was sky high with no Harper, Fox, or Wembanyama. And that is very key to note. Those 3 players weren't playing when he was doing his damage. And guess what they're going to be doing? Playing. So, at 115, it's already an insane price to pay for Castle. Plus, I've got his worst case scenario. Again, not likely to be this, but 290th. He was wasn't he 250th last season based on traditional rankings, which of course aren't correct. But 180th, 190th, he wasn't good. To me, the best case for him is 150, 160. Maybe he is so good that he starts playing 34 a night. I don't think so, but maybe he does. And then that pushes up. But the scope of this is not based on minutes ups and downs. Him in round 10, Steph Castle, more so in categories than points, is a bad pick. Not only is his game not a category league suited player, but the pathway just isn't there, I don't think. And I'm waiting for you to fight me on that. And that's good. Fight me. Let's do it. But that's my best and worst case. That's the variance. That's looking at 1 player, or 2 players actually in each round, who I think have the tightest range of outcomes, just statistically, and the broadest, the loosest, some may say, range of outcomes, statistically. I hope this gives you a little bit of insight just in terms of an extra element of risk. We know the game's played risks. We know roll risks. We know tank risks. We all factor that in. But very rarely do we factor in the individual statistical variance risks that are a part of this. And I think that is something you need to do. So hit thumb up on the video, subscribe, leave all your comments down below. Guys, yes, Locked On Fantasy Basketball Bowl stuff is coming. I am trying to figure out how best to run it, and just in discussions with Fantrax at the moment, but it will not be the same large field bowl as previous years. It just won't be. But we're going to be doing something. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.